What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the German Bear podcast. And today we're going to talk about NFL Scouting Combine Day 1. After just finished off, we're going to talk about the linebackers, interior defensive linemen, and edge players that participated today. And let's talk about these big positions of need for the Chicago Bears and who stood out today during the Scouting Combine workouts. And like I said in the intro for today's video, it's all about Scouting Combine Day 1, talking about the biggest standouts of the day, talking about players that were really impressive in terms of measurements that maybe helped or lowered their stocks, and then also talking about the overall performance on the field and with the testing numbers, of course, which is super important for a couple of prospects, just knowing does the tape match really the speed that they showed during the combine, and get a full picture for those prospects. And this is mostly based off of my rankings that I've done on the interior defensive linemen now and also on the edges. So the two big rankings that I have already done on the channel are great videos to complete the picture for the players that we're going to talk about today. So this video is kind of the complementary info for those videos. So if you want to, and if you're interested into my opinion of the top 8 edge rushers and top 8 interior defensive linemen for the Chicago Bears to go after in this draft class, full scouting reports on those players, go check out those videos, of course, after today's video. And we're going to look at the measurements for the players that didn't have them yet and they potentially didn't test. And then we're also going to look at every single position group and talk about players that actually tested at this year's combine and talk about those standards as well, just answering some questions that I had pre-combine for those prospects. And with that being said, let's get straight into it and start off with the first position group for today, which is the interior of the defensive line, talking defensive tackles. And there I want to start off with the measurement only guys that did not participate in the drills or especially not in the testings. And I want to start off with Peter Woods, which is, spoiler alert, a very high player on my interior defensive line rankings. And he measured in at 6'2.5", 298 pounds, with 31 1/4 inch arms and 9 1/8 inch hands. And that's overall not great measurements for Peter Woods, right? I think the arm length is, if that's correct by PFF, 2nd percentile overall. The wingspan is 5th percentile, and the hand size is only 7th percentile overall for defensive tackles. But at the end of the day, Peter Woods is a elite athlete. He's going to make up for that size issue in the NFL, and I don't really think it's going to be the biggest issue overall, right? He's not crazily undersized for a defensive tackle like Ruben Bain or Cassius Howell is for the edge position. So Peter Woods, to me, with his athletic profile, what he can offer and what he showed on tape, I'm not worried about it, but still, it's good to have official numbers on the junior here coming out of this combine week, and it's interesting to complement with my full scouting report, like I said, that I did with the last video talking about my interior defensive line rankings. But Peter Woods, it was expected that he had shorter arms. He has shorter arms, but it shouldn't be a huge problem in the NFL, in my opinion. Peter Woods still a highly talented and athletic freak at that interior defensive line position, and I'm not too worried about it. Also, first time true measurements that we got now for Caden McDonald, the defensive tackle out of Ohio State. He measured in at 6'2", 326 pounds, which is great, with 32 1/4 inch arms, which is really good, I think, in my opinion. Not really big size guy either, right? He's also just 13th percentile for arm length, but still not that bad. And then 9 3/4 inch hands as well, So for Caden McDonald, I think overall really good measurements. I think his arm length could have been much worse. It looked worse on tape, so I'm pretty happy with over 32 inch arms overall. And for Caden McDonald, I think those are good measurements too. And then for Christian Miller, the defensive tackle out of Georgia, I was really surprised with his measurements. Really good. 6'4", 321 pounds. He showed up at the combine and has 33 inch arms. So great length here for Christian Miller. And you can see it on tape. Him out extending some offensive linemen against a run. You saw him use it, and now you have confirmation he has pretty long arms to work with. And then 10 inch hands. So he has big paws, and he had one of the best first initial strikes in this draft class for interior defensive linemen, and those hands came in really handy, for real, legit. And you just saw him punch back those offensive linemen, so that's also very interesting to see with those combine measurements. And then I also want to talk about Dominique Orange, which was probably the biggest surprise in my opinion, because he measured in at 6'2", 322 pounds, so awesome mass overall to work with 10 1/4 inch hands, so huge paws for him as well. And the arm length is 33 3/8 inch arms. I did not expect that for Dominique Orange. He has such big biceps that it probably makes his arms look shorter, but on tape I really thought he had shorter arms, and sometimes he was out extending offensive linemen that were pretty long in terms of arm length, and I was like, how is that possible, right? His arms look super short, but now it makes sense. He has over 33 inch arms for Dominique Orange. And if you want to, like I said, check out that video. I talk about him more in depth, but quickly talking about him, he is a really big tree stump in the middle. And talking about the athletic ability that he had, the quickness off the ball, paired with his frame now that he obviously showed off at the combine with the length that he possesses, I don't know, maybe there's more to him in the future in terms of pass rush as well, and the talent might be there because athletically he's gifted. He has long arms and has some good weight that he carries with good muscle mass. And overall, that was a big surprise for me, Dominique Orange. So I was really happy actually seeing him show up at that size and being measured in like that at the 2026 NFL Combine. And with that being said, let's shift over to actually the guys that did some testings and workouts and talk about those standouts as well for today. And there we have to talk about, of course, the monster, one of my favorite players in this draft class, Caleb Banks, the interior defensive lineman out of Florida. Now he measured in, and we're talking about size this time, right? Caleb Banks was already measured in at the Senior Bowl, and the size didn't change a lot, so that's not a huge surprise, but he actually did some testings. But for his measures at the combine, 6'6", 327 pounds, so a little bit lighter, I think, than at the Senior Bowl, if I remember correctly. Still 35-inch arms and 10 7/8 inch hands overall, so a massive human being, and I need that guy on the Bears so badly. But what was obviously very interesting today was his results in the testing area of his combine workout. And that was, first of all, the 40-yard dash, which was a 5.04 for a guy at 6'6", 327 pounds. That was awesome numbers, right? Overall, it's not a crazy number. It's 30th percentile, 5.04 seconds. But for his size, he was moving really well. And he had a 10-yard split of 10.76 seconds, which I think he's an awesome athlete. You saw him on tape explode off the ball. 31st percentile overall. It doesn't sound great, but again, for his size, moving like that is pretty special, and he showed it at the combine too with a 1.76 10-yard split, which I think for him is awesome. And then in terms of vertical jump, he had a 32-inch vertical jump, which is 52nd percentile, and a 9.6 broad jump, which is also absolutely awesome for his size. So I thought Caleb Banks, talking about him a little bit here, he is obviously a disruptive interior defender that has the abilities to really be a disruptive pass rusher in the NFL with his size and his capabilities, what he's shown at Florida. And for him to test that well should really, kind of sadly for the Bears, pump him up to draft boards a little bit, because I really hope he will be there for the Chicago Bears at 25. But nonetheless, really good workout for him overall. He measured in really well. Of course, we knew it from the Senior Bowl already. But for Caleb Banks, really happy that he was able to show that off today as well athletically, and I just really hope he drops to 25 and the Chicago Bears can snag him. And then moving on along the defensive line, another player that's pretty high on my list, I want to now talk about Lee Hunter, the defensive tackle out of Texas Tech. Now for Lee Hunter, it was a different kind of a day in terms of testing, but for measurements, 6'3", 318 pounds, showed up a little bit lighter, 33 1/4 inch arms and 9 1/4 inch hands, which is pretty solid measurements overall, right? He is a lengthy defensive tackle, a nose guard in the NFL that has some mass to anchor down in the run game, but also showed up a lot of power as a pass rusher during Senior Bowl week. And for Lee Hunter's testing numbers overall, it was not that great of a day overall, but we'll talk about the impact of that in a second. In terms of 40-yard dash, it was a 5.18 second 40-yard dash, which is only 12th percentile for defensive tackles. 10-yard split was only 20th percentile with a 1.79 second 10-yard split. And then in terms of the vertical jump, it was a 21.5, which is not great at all. That's 0 percentile, which is not great to say the least. And then the broad jump was a 8.4, which I don't really have the percentile number for that right now. But overall, testing wise, Lee Hunter didn't look too great. But if you looked at him during the movement drills, he looked awesome, right? Very fluid mover. He is a good athlete. He is just a true nose tackle that maybe isn't the most juicy and explosive athlete, but you don't need him to be that guy, right? Just watch the tape, look at Lee Hunter. He can anchor down. He's a big, raw, strong guy in the middle of a defense, and he can be a true pocket collapser as well. That's why he's so high on my list. And even though the testing wasn't awesome, I don't think it does a lot of negative for Lee Hunter overall in this process. I think he's still one of the best interior defensive linemen in this draft class, and nobody should put too much weight into his measurements specifically for his position, because that's going to be fine. He's going to be okay. And then moving on for another guy that was in my top 8, spoiler alert, for my interior defensive line rankings, I now want to talk about Albert Regis next here for those defensive tackles, and he had an awesome day overall. Now, he is undersized. We know his measurements from Shrine Bowl: 6'1", 295, 31 5/8 inch arms, and 9 5/8 inch hands, which is totally okay, right? He's just an undersized defensive lineman, but a damn good run stuffer at that, to say the least. But for his results, 4.88 40-yard dash, a 1.72 10-yard split, which was awesome in my opinion to see, and then a vert of 34 and a 9.8 broad jump as well. So really good testing numbers overall for Albert Regis. If we're looking at percentiles, 54th percentile 40-yard dash, 47th percentile 10-yard split, and then a 72nd percentile vertical jump and a 64th percentile broad jump overall, which was pretty impressive. And I felt like Albert Regis showed off his explosiveness, which you didn't always see on tape, and it kind of gives me hope that his pass rush could get better in the league. I don't know if that's truly going to be the case, right? You always should go with the tape first. Combine is just a nice addition to the tape. But Albert Regis, good athlete, which surprised me, and not totally surprised me, right? He was still quick off the ball against the run, but still, I didn't expect him to test that well. So that was really cool to see at today's combine workout. And then the second to last player I want to talk about in the interior defensive line category for today is going to be Grayson Halton, who is one of my favorite players in this year's draft class. And he had an outstanding day at the combine. Measured in at 6'3", so he got a little bit bigger since the Senior Bowl, which is surprising. 293 pounds, 31 1/8 inch arms, and 10-inch hands, which was cool. So big hands, not the longest arms. And his testing numbers were that he had a 40-yard dash of 4.82 seconds, a 1.7 second 10-yard split, which is 55th percentile, and 66th percentile is the 40-yard dash. And then in terms of vertical jump, 90th percentile vertical jump at 36.5, which was, if I remember correctly here, the third highest at defensive tackle in the last 20 years. Grayson Halton vertically jumped the third highest since the last 20 years overall, and then also on his 40-yard dash, as a side fact, was the 5th fastest in the last 4 years at top speed reached. So Grayson Halton, absolute athlete, and then a 9.6 broad jump as well on the day, which was good. And that was awesome for him, man. Grayson Halton is a undersized pass rushing 3 technique that can be really effective guy in a 4-3 defense, which is definitely fitting with the Chicago Bears, right? So for Grayson Halton, I really hope that puts him into the eyes of the Chicago Bears. I want this guy so badly since I saw him at the Senior Bowl, and he was such a dog there. Was really good watching his tape, and now at the combine had another great part of the process going into the NFL draft. So for Grayson Halton, a guy that's definitely still rising draft boards, and I loved it for him. Awesome player out of Oklahoma. And then the last defensive tackle that we're going to look at today is Damone Capehart. I hope I'm saying that name correctly, out of Clemson. He had another awesome workout overall during the 2026 Scouting Combine. He measured in at 6'5", 313 pounds with 33 7/8 inch arms, so almost 34-inch arms, and over 10-inch hands at 10 1/4 inch hands overall. So Damone Capehart, in terms of measurements, was really surprised what he has offered here. He was at Shrine Bowl, but I don't know why I didn't have him on my radar already. So that was really cool to see. And he's a guy I haven't gotten to yet, really. I've watched a little bit of him while watching Peter Woods, and I was really impressed by his movement skills. And then he tested at the combine. 40-yard dash, 4.85 40-yard dash in terms of seconds, a 1.71 second 10-yard split, so both great numbers, a 33.5 vertical, and a 8.11 broad jump. Really good athlete overall, tested really well. He looked pretty juicy off the line of scrimmage with a good burst, initial quickness off the line of scrimmage, so that was great. And just an awesome day overall for Damone Capehart. And he's a guy that I'm definitely going to watch now, fully evaluate him. And he might be a guy that gets into my top 8 for the interior defensive lineman, or at least into the top 10 if he really performs on tape the way I expect him to. And also Grayson Halton, who just missed the top 10 or top 8, excuse me, in the last video. He's definitely in the top 8 now in terms of interior defensive lineman for Darrell Jackson Jr. If you've seen the video, you know what I'm talking about. So 2 players that did a lot for their stock come this NFL draft season. And then we want to move on to the second position group for today, moving on to the edge position now, another huge need for the Chicago Bears, of course. And we want to start off with the measurement only guys first of all, because there's a couple of really good players that we now got first measurements of. And I want to start off with my number 1 guy at edge, which is Akeem Mesidor, the edge out of Miami that could potentially be there for the Chicago Bears. And he measured in at 6'3", 259 pounds, and 32 1/8 inch arms and 10-inch hands. So hand size is good. Size is also pretty okay. His arm length is not exceptional, right? 32 1/8 inch arms are not awesome. But at the end of the day, Akeem Mesidor is such a refined pass rusher, such a good player overall. I'm not too worried about it. Now, his arm length is 12th percentile, but it could be much worse, right? We could be talking about Ruben Bain, who is 1st percentile with about 30 and whatever. Like, we're sub 31-inch arms for Ruben Bain and also for Cassius Howell. So that will be a real issue, but he is over 32-inch arms, so I'm not too worried about Akeem Mesidor overall. So that was great getting his measurement. We also got official measurements for junior Keldrick Falk out of Auburn, who was also a pretty high-ranked guy in my edge rankings. He measured in at 6'6", 276 pounds, and 34 3/8 inch arms with 9 7/8 inch hands. Obviously, we expected him to have long arms, that long frame at a great weight, and he is just a prototypical Dennis Allen edge rusher. So something to really monitor for the Chicago Bears. If he drops in the draft, he could be a target for the Bears badly just because of size and what he could offer. And he had also a great overall workout on the field. He didn't test a lot. He only did a vertical jump of 35 and a 9.9 broad jump. He didn't run the 10 or the 40-yard dash overall, but his field workout looked really smooth for his size. He did bend pretty well around the edges there in those drills as well. So Keldrick Falk had a great day overall, and we have his measurements now. And then for Zion Young, he did also the field workout, which looked okay. He looked a little bit stiff, but at his size, that was okay. But he measured in at 6'6", 262 pounds, 33-inch arms, and 9.5-inch hands. We already had some of his measurements at the Senior Bowl, but he's gotten a little bit taller too with the official measurements now at the Combine at 6'6". So that was cool to see. And then the last two guys I want to talk about in terms of measurements is Gabe Akers at 6'4", 260 pounds with 33-inch arms and 10-inch hands. So he has good measurements overall. It's pretty similar to the Senior Bowl once again, but I just wanted to mention it to you guys. And then Joshua Josephs, the senior out of Tennessee. We didn't have anything about him yet in terms of measurements, and he has awesome measurements overall, right? Measured in at 6'3", 242 pounds, so definitely on the lighter side, so not the prototypical guy the Bears will go after. but still a guy with 34.25-inch arms. Super long arms, long frame, 10-inch hands. I think that's a guy that can really, developing in the league, put on some mass onto his body, carry more weight, and just grow into a NFL type edge rusher body with his length. And there's really some talent there with Joshua Josephs, a guy that just slightly missed my edge top 8, but definitely a guy that was on the outside looking in, and a guy I still liked a lot watching at Tennessee and his all-22. And then moving on to the measurement workout testing standouts for the day, the guys that actually ran and did multiple field workout drills. I want to start off with one of my favorite players in this draft class once again, which is TJ Parker, the edge out of Clemson. He had an awesome day overall at the combine, measured in at 6'4", 263 pounds, so awesome size, 33.18-inch arms, and 9.5-inch hands. So overall great measurements for TJ Parker, completely checks out. And then he had an awesome day testing and performing on the field workouts as well. 4.68 second 40-yard dash, which is great time for him. A 1.62 second 10-yard split, which was one of the fastest in this entire class for the testing numbers, and is in terms of percentiles a 87th percentile 10-yard split and a also 86th percentile 40-yard dash. So for TJ Parker, some elite testing numbers for a guy that you maybe had a couple of reservations in terms of juice off the line of scrimmage, just the quickness, but he's definitely answered those. He also had a 34 vert and a 10 broad. So overall for TJ Parker, testing wise, a great day. And then on the field workouts, looked very smooth, good mover, and was pretty fluid overall in all those movement drills. So for TJ Parker, really excited. He might even move up a little bit more in my edge rankings. If you don't know where he was, go check out that video, like I said. But TJ Parker, he is really doing a lot of the right things to get his name back into the pool of big time first round edge rushers in this draft class after a on paper down year in 2025, even though I still think his tape looked really good. And then moving on to another very highly ranked edge rusher in this class, let's talk about Cassius Howell, who also had an interesting day overall, I would say, at the NFL Combine. Now, he measured in at 6'2", 253 pounds, which is all fine. But the big issue with him is, of course, his arm length. He measured in at 30.25-inch arms. Under 31-inch arms is not good at all. It's 0 percentile, right? It's not good for Cassius Howell, but if a guy could get away with it, I kind of think it would be him, just with his athletic ability and his raging ability just to go after the quarterback with relentless effort. And then hands-wise, he's measured in at 9.25-inch hands. Now, in terms of testing, he did pretty good in the running component of this combine. He had a 4.59 second 40-yard dash and a 1.58 second 10-yard split, which is both absolutely awesome. We're talking about 94th and 93rd percentile numbers here, and you see that on tape, right? He gets off the ball like a absolute rocket, and that's how he plays, and that's what the combine showed as well. But then in terms of vert, had a 32.5 and a 9.7 broad jump. So those testing numbers were not good on the other hand, or not exceptional on the other hand. So for Cassius Howell, a up and down day, but the measurement with the arms is kind of concerning. So he might really drop in the draft into maybe even the second round. But in the second round, it's a guy worth taking, right? Cassius Howell is a really good pass rusher. It's just a question, can he be the outlier that actually can perform at that length, even though other players that were maybe good as well haven't really gotten that done yet. So that's going to be a really interesting topic moving forward. And then I want to talk about R. Mason Thomas as well today, the edge out of Oklahoma. He measured in at 6'2", 241 pounds, so a little bit lighter, with 31 5/8-inch arms. I think to me, he's kind of similar to Cassius Howell, but he has longer arms going for him, which is good. But he has tiny hands at 8 7/8-inch hands overall, so that's not great for him. Just talking about how he can hold on to blocks and how much he can control the line of scrimmage with his hands. But for his testing numbers, he had a 4.67 second 40-yard dash and a 1.63 second 10-yard split, which is both okay numbers. I thought he would test a little bit better, but we're still talking about 87th and 84th percentile for R. Mason Thomas, who is a great athlete on tape, and he proved it also at the combine. And for him, that was pretty cool to see in terms of testing numbers, but the size is, of course, like expected, a little bit on the shorter side. And then two more guys I want to talk about. First of all, Malachi Lawrence, a guy I haven't gotten to yet because I just don't have a lot of UCF tape. But at the end of the day, awesome day for him overall. He measured in at 6'4", 253 pounds with 33 5/8 inch arms and 9 1/4 inch hands. So measurement wise, pretty good. 253 is also not horrible weight for him, and I feel like he's got a lot of body to still fill out in the NFL. So guy I think can maintain his quickness that he possesses, but then also maybe be better against the run as a edge setter moving forward. So that's going to be interesting. But in terms of testing, awesome day overall. A 4.52 40-yard dash, which is 98th percentile, a 10-yard split of 1.59, which is 95th percentile, a 40 vert, a 10-10 broad, and just a elite day testing for Malachi Lawrence. Like I said, I don't have a lot of tape for him. As soon as I get it, I'll look at him, but I've heard a lot of positive things for him already, and he's just an intriguing player and tested like an elite athlete, so he's definitely jumping draft boards. And he also had a very clean field workout, just looking very smooth as a mover with not a lot of false steps. And then the last guy I want to talk about in this category today is going to be Dennis Sutton, the edge rusher out of Penn State. Also a guy I unfortunately haven't gotten to yet, even though I wanted to. But he's measured in at 6'6", which was crazy to see, 256 pounds, 33 1/2 inch arms, and 10 1/8 inch hands. So measurement wise, an absolute beast in Dennis Sutton. And then in terms of testing athletically, he also did a really good job. Had a 40-yard dash of 4.63 seconds, a 10-yard split of 1.63 seconds as well. So in both aspects of his running, he was doing a great job during this combine day. And that's also 91st percentile and 81st percentile for those numbers. And then had a 39.5 vertical jump, which is 98th percentile, and a 10-11 broad jump, which is 99th percentile. Dennis Sutton, I don't know why, but I did not know he was that big of an elite athlete. I could have assumed because he was at Penn State and they always have elite athletes. But Dennis Sutton, a guy I have to go back and watch, a guy I have to evaluate more in detail, and maybe a guy that will also make my top 8 for the edge rushers potentially available for the Chicago Bears. So like I said, he was really surprising, but had a overall awesome day at the 2026 Combine as well. And with that being said, let's finish off the day and go to our third position group. Long day, but I think it was really fun to watch. And that was, of course, the linebackers, a group that I have not done yet, but it is obviously a glaring need for the Chicago Bears, especially with the trade rumors now officially happening for Tremaine Edmunds too, who was a cut candidate for me anyways. This linebacking core needs some young players that can really perform at a high level, and lucky for the Chicago Bears, this draft class has some good players, and this is kind of, for me, some sort of the first introduction. I've watched some players like a Kyle Lewis and some of Jacob Rodriguez, but there's still a couple of questions that those players definitely answered today. And I want to start off with Jacob Rodriguez, actually the Heisman candidate out of Texas Tech, who had an insane year for that defense, a very smart player with great intangibles. But for him, the question was, how athletic is he? Can he be a true NFL 3-down player and just keep up athletically and keep that standard that he set at Texas Tech up and in the NFL? And that was super important for him, and he definitely delivered today. Now, in terms of measurements, measured in at 6'1", 231 pounds with 30 7/8 inch arms and 9 1/4 inch hands. So, of course, not outstanding, but really solid measurements for Jacob Rodriguez. Arm length is maybe a little bit of a concern just for him to disengage against blockers in the NFL in the second level. But, I mean, he's such a smart player. I think if anyone can really make up for it, it's him. But the testing was obviously the big question with him. Is he quick enough? And man, he answered the bell because Jacob Rodriguez went out there and ran a 4.57 40-yard dash on the day, which was awesome, a 10.6 10-yard split, which is also good, and it's all very much well enough for the NFL level, so he answered that question already. And then also had a 88th percentile 38.5 vertical jump and a 65th percentile broad jump at 10.1. So athletically, he just hit a home run for himself. Everybody that had questions about his athleticism, his readiness in terms of athleticism in the NFL, he answered that question without a doubt. And that gets me really excited for Jacob Rodriguez as a player potentially available for the Chicago Bears at 57. With his intangibles, with his athleticism that he now possesses, we know that now on paper, he is a big-time candidate to be a true Mike linebacker for the Chicago Bears, a captain of this defense, and a turnover machine. And I can't wait to dig more into his tape to watch Jacob Rodriguez, but that was awesome for him today. And then also I want to talk about Kyle Lewis, the linebacker out of Pittsburgh. Now, linebacker is obviously one name you could call his position, but you can also name him and call him a big nickel or a safety hybrid. Kyle Lewis, a guy that can play multiple positions for a defense for a guy like Dennis Allen. I already talked about him in my mock draft 1.0 because he was a guy that went to the Chicago Bears in that mock, but he is another guy that had an awesome step into the right direction once again during his draft process. He had an outstanding Senior Bowl and now a great combine performance as well. Measured in at 6 foot, which is cool. I like it. 220, so a little bit light for a linebacker, but let's see what a guy like Dennis Allen can do with him. Put him in multiple situations. 31 1/4 inch arms, which is pretty good, and a 9.5 inch hands. And overall for his testing results, really good. We're talking about a 4.53 40-yard dash, a 1.58 second 10-yard split, both elite numbers, a 39.5 vertical jump, a 10.9 broad jump. I know Sonny Styles and Arvell Reeves took everybody's attention during the day combine-wise for linebackers, and deservingly so. Those two guys were absolutely awesome and hitting home run balls as well. But for Kyle Lewis, a undersized guy, was important to perform in those aspects, and for his jumping measurements, for example, was 92nd percentile vertical and 96th percentile broad jump. Kyle Lewis is a special athlete that can cover, that's still physical against the run, and looked awesome also during field workouts, and a guy I just have to dig into a little bit more to get a full picture, but a guy I am very high on already, and I think he is one of the best and coolest prospects in this year's draft class to go after for the Chicago Bears to get a versatile playmaker on defense. And then a couple of more linebackers. Anthony Hill Jr., a guy the Chicago Bears have met already at the Combine out of Texas, was doing a really good job. He measured in at 6'2", 238 pounds with 32 3/8 inch arms and 9 5/8 inch hands. So awesome measurements for him. And he also delivered in terms of traits and Combine results. He had a 4.51 40-yard dash, a 1.58 second 10-yard split, a 37 vert, a 10.5 broad jump. Another great athlete at linebacker for the Chicago Bears to go after, and he was doing a great job overall today testing and also performing on the field during workouts. And then I also want to mention Jake Golday, the linebacker out of Cincinnati, a huge presence at 6'4.5", 239 pounds, 31 7/8 inch arms, and 9.5 inch hands. A big presence that you saw during the combine workout today. He just looked a little bit different than anyone else in terms of size, but he also had a great day testing. 4.62 40-yard dash for his size is awesome. A 1.6 10-yard split, a 39 vert jump, a 10.5 broad jump. Another great athlete. This group of linebackers is so talented, and Jake Golday is definitely one of these guys. I've watched this tape a little bit. They played him in a kind of a weird role as that will linebacker in that defense, even though I felt like his big presence needs to be truly in the middle, just defending the run and be in that box. But he was doing a good job covering as far as I've seen. I haven't done a lot of games yet though, so for Jake Golday, a guy that I'm getting really excited about and a guy I'm definitely going after during my linebacker scoutings. And then the last guy I want to talk about today in terms of linebackers is going to be Caleb Elarms, which is a linebacker out of TCU who measured in at 6'2", 234 pounds. So a little bit lighter, but still okay for sure. And then 31 1/2 inch arms and 9-inch hands. And he's a guy I haven't watched yet. I saw him during, it was, I think, Shrine Bowl week, and he flashed a couple of times of the practice that I rewatched, but he had also an elite testing day, and that's what got me really excited. Plus, his workout that he had on the field was really good. He had a 4.47 40-yard dash, a 1.59 second 10-yard split, a 40 vertical jump, and a 10-4 broad jump. So athletically really gifted. On the field workout was one of the best ones in terms of just running smoothly, braking efficiently with his T-steps, triggering down, and he was really clean all day long at the combine. So Caleb Elarms, I hope I'm saying that correctly, is a prospect I'm getting really excited about. I'm definitely going to watch him out of TCU. And let's see how he does. If the tape is just like what I saw at the combine or not, of course, could also be the case. But a guy I wanted to shout out and who looked really good as well at today's combine workout. And with that being said, we're at the conclusion of today's episode. A really fun day one at the combine. Please, guys, let me know in the comments down below what you thought of my new graphics that I tried out today for the first time. They're not perfect yet. There's a lot of room to grow and improve on, but still let me know in the comments down below if you like those graphics and if you want something similar, just a little bit more pretty in the future for if I'm especially talking about prospects and the draft, because I can't show you guys game tape. I think that's not allowed. So I think graphics would at least upgrade the quality of the videos a little bit. So let me know in the comments down below. And also don't forget to let me know in the comments what you saw at today's combine, who caught your eye, what do you think of the players I talked about today, or is there someone I missed that you want to talk about in the comments down below? So feel free to let me know. And with that being said, guys, that's the end of today's episode. So much fun talking combine today and just doing these graphics for you guys. So let me know in the comments below, like I said, what you guys are thinking about the prospects talking today. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It's completely free, but it helps supporting me just building this small little community with you guys and continue making this awesome content. That's so much fun to do. And with that being said, guys, I see you guys soon again after combine day 2 probably, or maybe it's going to be a day 2 and day 3 recap overall. Who knows? But until then, and as always, bear down.